Like and subscribe. An Orion Woman's Revenge. The alarms blared as the sleek, black Orion starship sliced through the void of space, pursued by a barrage of blinding laser fire. Taria, the Orion woman, clung to her seat. She had only moments before the ship would be overtaken. She activated the cloaking device just as the lasers grazed the ship's hull. The vessel shimmered and vanished from the enemy's scanners, diving into the shadow of a massive gas giant where the space station known as Exodus Prime orbited. "Enter stealth mode," she whispered to the ship. She put on her disguise, an exotic dancer's outfit, adorned with a shimmering, barely there fabric and intricate jewelry that highlighted her curves. With a deep breath, Taria entered the docking bay, blending in with the crowd of people. Her senses were on high alert. She found her way to the Pleasure Dome, the heart of Exodus Prime's entertainment district. Taria slipped onto the stage. The music pulsed with an exotic beat, her body moving in perfect rhythm, each gesture designed to mesmerize and distract. She scanned the crowd, identifying key figures. There sat Jackson Vex, the overseer of Vex Corp. He had a thing for exotic dancers, surrounded by his cadre of heavily armed guards. Her mission was clear: infiltrate the high-security space station, expose the corrupt corporation, and avenge her brother's death, and failure was not an option. Her performance was a calculated risk, each step bringing her closer to her target. As she danced, Taria's mind flashed back to her brother's lifeless body, a victim of the very drugs that funded Vex's operations. This pain and anger fueled her resolve. She would not let his death be in vain. Vex's eyes gleamed with interest as Taria finished her routine and approached him, her hips swaying seductively. "You're new," he said, his voice thick with lust. "Just arrived," she replied, her voice a seductive purr. "I heard this is where all the action is." Vex chuckled, beckoning her closer. "You've heard correctly. Join me for a drink." As she sat beside him, Taria subtly activated a tiny recording device hidden in her jewelry. "Tell me more about yourself," she purred, leaning in to ensure his eyes were only on her. Vex grinned, his tongue loosened by alcohol and arrogance. "We're building an army, sweetheart. The drugs are just the beginning. With the off-the-book funds we're raising, we'll challenge the Galactic Council and take control of the galaxy. No more bowing to their laws." Taria's heart raced. This was the confirmation she needed, but she had to get out alive to relay the information to the proper authorities. She continued to feign interest, her mind calculating escape routes. What an arrogant fool, she thought. Unexpectedly, a loud crash echoed through the room. The doors burst open, and a group of armed rebels stormed in, their leaders shouting orders, everyone on the ground. Chaos erupted. Vex's guards sprang into action, weapons drawn. Taria seized the moment, slipping a small device into Vex's drink. It fizzed silently, a potent neurotoxin that would incapacitate him within minutes. In the chaos, Taria caught the eye of the rebel leader, a scarred, rugged man with a fierce determination in his gaze. "You!" he barked, pointing at her. "Vex's woman. Yeah, you. Get over here." She hesitated only for a moment before moving to him. "Who are you?" she shouted over the noise as they ducked behind a fallen table. He grabbed her to use her as a shield. She shouts, "I'm not his woman. They will kill us." "I'm Captain B.N.Rocker," he replied. "We've been tracking Vex for months. If you're not one of his women, then who are you?" "Taria. I'm here to take him down for the murder of my brother and countless other victims on my world," she said, her voice fierce. Rayner nodded. "Then let's finish this." Handed her a blaster, they stood up and moved as one, cutting through the guards with precision. Taria's agility and Rayner's brute strength made them an unstoppable force. Finally, they reached Vex, who was gasping for breath, the toxin taking its toll. Taria leaned over him, her voice cold. "This is for my brother." With that, she injected him with a fatal dose of his own product, the drug known as Utopia, ensuring he would never threaten anyone again. Taria looked at Rayner and said, "There's a plot to overthrow the Galactic Council. We need to expose it." Rayner's expression hardened. "Do you have proof of that?" he asked. "I have a recording of him explaining the plan, rock-solid evidence that the Council cannot ignore." The alarms blared louder. echoing through the metal corridors of Exodus Prime. Taria and Captain B.N.Rocker dashed through the chaos, their destination clear, the hangar bay. As they approached the massive doors, Taria grabbed Raynor's arm, her voice urgent and breathless. "Join me on my ship. I'm heading to the Council Hall on Earth," she said. "Your Raider ship is too slow. We'll never make it. There is a fleet of Vex Corp's capital ships hidden in the orbit of the gas giant. I had a run-in with them as I arrived." Rocker looked at her. "You underestimate our ship," he replied, a hint of a grin forming on his lips. Taria shook her head, her expression grave. "There are 4 capital ships hidden on the other side of this gas giant, parked just inside orbit, out of view. You'll never leave alive." Raynor's crewmates quickly confirmed her warning, their faces pale with fear. Raynor's mind raced, calculating the risks. He turned to his crew, issuing rapid-fire commands. "Set the ship on autopilot and lead the capital ships away in a feint maneuver. We'll slip out in her stealth ship." His crew sprang into action, programming their Raider ship to act as a decoy. With a final nod to his men, Raynor followed Taria to her sleek, black Orion stealth ship. The vessel hummed to life as they boarded. With the activation of the cloaking device, the ship seemingly shimmers out of existence. "We have to make a mad dash for Earth," Taria said, her hands flying over the controls. "Once we're clear of the gas giant's orbit, we'll engage the warp drive." The plan worked. The capital ships chased the Raider, or so they thought. As they slipped away from the gas giant, a Vex scout ship moved into position, its sensors sweeping the region. Alarms blared on Taria's ship as the scout ship's sensor sweep disrupted their cloaking device. The scout fires torpedoes. "We have 2 torps incoming," the tactical officer announced. Rocker replies, "Cloak just fell. We are sitting ducks with no shields." Raynor looked over at Taria. "Well, we gave it our all," he said, just as the computer announced the gas giant's gravitational flux cleared, ready for warp. Taria smiled. "It's not over until the fat lady sings," she said with a smirk, "and we don't have any on board." "Hang on!" Taria shouted, slamming her hand onto the warp drive activation. The ship lurched forward, the stars outside stretching into lines as they entered warp speed, narrowly escaping the scout's torpedoes. Minutes later, they arrived at the council hall on Earth. Taria hurriedly gathered her evidence, her heart pounding as she and Raynor rushed into the grand chamber. The council members listened intently as she laid out the details of Vex Corp's illegal operations and their plot to raise an army. The room buzzed with urgent conversations as council members conferred. Finally, the head counselor stood, his expression grim. "We will take swift actions against Vex Corp. We will bring their key players into custody to face crimes of high treason," he assured them. As the council members moved to execute their orders, Taria and Raynor exchanged a look of triumph and relief. They had succeeded in their mission, and Taria knew her brother's death had not been in vain. This is not goodbye, nor the end. Until the story continues, my friends. B.N.Rocker.